What is up, LvLUp Nation, and welcome to the Thursday, September 17th edition of LvLUp Live, your home for gaming and esports news, brought to you by OTN Media. My name is Fiasco. You can call me John. That handsome fella next to me. You can smile, Joe. It's okay. I gave you a compliment. I don't know if you can hear me. He probably has me muted. It's fine. Don't worry about it. That man is the king of the courtside, also known as Joey. What's up, buddy?
Doing well, sir. Doing well. It's been a crazy couple weeks, not only for OTN and LvLUp, John, but for gaming in general. The Xbox Series X, the Xbox Series S, the PlayStation 5 regular and digital editions, Nintendo doing directs here and there. Lots and lots of gaming news.
Tons of gaming news, and you're going to want to keep up on it. Like, if you're watching the show, if you're listening to it on the podcast later on down the road, obviously you're a gamer or you have some kind of interest in gaming, so make sure you're following the show and us on social media. Make sure you follow the show on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at LvLUp Live. That's at LvLUP Live. And while you're on Twitter, why not toss Joey and I a follow? You can find Joey at Courtside King, myself at Fiasco, live here on Twitch. Those are the handles right below those mugshots you're currently staring at. And if you're listening on the podcast down the road, check out the show notes. We'll have them there. You can just copy and paste. Really simple. Nation, as always, if you do wish to listen to that podcast version, the LvLUp Podcast is available on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. And since you're listening to the podcast already, why not leave us an awesome review? Reviews do go a long way, help grow the show and reach new listeners. So when you do have a moment, we'd appreciate you taking your time out of your day, writing a really awesome review, or telling a friend, telling a family member, let someone else know about the LvLUp Podcast, about LvLUp Live, and have them join LvLUp Nation. All right, Joey, I'm going to turn the ball over to you for the topics. Topic-wise, maybe not a lot to talk about. Substance-wise of those topics, my goodness, we're in for a treat today.
Okay, Level Up Nation, podcast listeners and live listeners here on Twitch, we're going to do things a little bit differently this week. So instead of diving into all the partnerships and the roster moves, which there have been some here and there, and we'll touch on those eventually, but for today's podcast, we're diving deep with PlayStation and Xbox. We're going to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly of both sides, the way both teams have been approaching their marketing, what services they're both offering, what launch games we're looking at, if you should upgrade now, if you're looking at a console, if you should upgrade at all. So there's going to be a lot of different things we're going to dive into, from specs to games to services to what that looks like for you as a gamer potentially, and also some of the different pre-order stuff going on, some of the drama with PlayStation, as well as how you can possibly pick up that new PlayStation or Xbox heading into the next year. So we'll be diving a lot into that. And then at the end of the show, John, we're going to touch on League of Legends Worlds because we did have the group draw last week. I stand corrected. They did the play-in and the full group draw. So we'll be breaking those groups down a bit for you guys as well, diving into somewhat predictions when it comes to the play-in stuff. But other than that, we will be touching on the beauty of those groups and the possibility of a Western champion to come later this year.
Oh, that's a gutsy prediction there, Joey. I like it. I like it a lot. All right, Joey. It's going to be a fun episode. I feel like we're going to have a very good in-depth discussion about the next generation of consoles now that we have not just price points, but specs for both consoles out there as well, as long as a hint of what we're going to see launch title-wise. So, Joey, I don't want to waste too much time on this. It's the drink of choice. I have a feeling I've stocked up. I have several because I have a feeling we're going to be doing a lot of talking, a lot of back and forth, a lot of discussion here. So I have enough here to sustain me throughout the entire show. But Joey, what are you having for today? I believe episode 192, if I'm counting correctly, of LvLUp Live, also known as the Thursday edition here on September 17th. What's your beverage?
I mean, I'm not going to lie, John. I'm a little concerned with how many drinks you have.
Don't worry about it. We're good. We're fine.
I'm going bourbon tonight. I do have back on the, or alcohol is back on the menu, ladies and gentlemen. Woodford Reserve here. It's going to be a nice gentleman's conversation, maybe a little bit of fanboying here and there between us, but overall, we're looking at the raw facts as well as our personal experiences.
It's worked for me before, going back to the well again. The good old fashioned rum and Coke. Simple as that, rum and Coke. I like it. Chat's loving your bourbon choice already. Alan is calling you a good old Virginia boy.
Heyo.
Well, better you than me. Anywho, Joey, I'm not from Virginia, so it's fine. Joey, we have our beverages. We have a handful of topics that we will expand over the course of the next 45 minutes-ish to an hour. Joey, let's get right into it. Let's get right into our first topic. I normally throw it off to gaming and esports news, but I feel like we're just going right into the console wars, so let's do it.
I mean, this kind of counts as gaming and esports news, right?
Does it?
It is very gaming related. But John, before we go into that, I think one thing to do here is just to kind of give a background on us. Like, what is our experiences in console gaming?
It's fair.
So for me, I started out with Nintendo products. As far as Xbox and PlayStation goes, my first one was a PlayStation 2. From there, I moved on to Xbox 360. From there, I took a big delay as far as moving to a new console, but I eventually went to Xbox One later in the generation. That was after they took the whole Kinect thing out of the process. And then I eventually moved on to where I am today, mostly playing on PC like yourself. So I've been in both ecosystems here and there, but overall spending more time on the Xbox One. As far as services, I am on Xbox Gold and all that stuff, as well as Xbox Game Pass. Over to you, sir.
Oh, so we're just disclosing our dirty gamer laundry out here and everything. Cool.
Well, I mean, just like, where did you start? How are you moving forward? Come on.
So I come from the Nintendo 64 generation. Let's go Nintendo 64. But after that, really Sony took over for me. So I've been on the PlayStation train since PlayStation 1. I've had a 1, I've had a 2, I've had a 3, I have a 4. When PlayStation Network went down for that 2-month period back in the PlayStation 3 generation, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, like a lot of other PlayStation people out there, and I did jump to the 360. Didn't have a bad experience with the 360. I thought it was decent, but eventually once PlayStation Network got things were figured out, I ended up going back to the PlayStation 3, got the PlayStation 4, actually used my 360 as an in-store credit to buy my PlayStation 4. So stick that to you Xbox fanboys out there. So yeah, my console gaming history is mainly in the Sony camp, mainly with PlayStation. But over the past 4 or 5 years, just like Joey said, I've transition my way to the PC master race when it comes to gaming. So yeah, it's a PC gamer and my PlayStation 4 for sports games because, you know, EA doesn't like focusing on sports on PC for some stupid reason.
Okay, so I think that brings us to our next thing. So with you and I both being predominantly PC gamers, why are we looking at consoles in general? You brought up one big point there, sports games. When you look at sports games, and you can dive into this more, John, because you've played more of them on PC than I have, it's not really supported that well in the PC environment. Yes, the single player is great. The graphics are great. The services to a degree are there. But when it comes to anyone who wants to play sports games on a multiplayer level, PC kind of falls apart. Call of Duty is another one. Call of Duty predominantly a console type of game. Now, it's made moves to the PC. You can argue Modern Warfare has done well. Warzone has done well. It's not a bad game on PC, though it feels like it has to load shaders every single time I log into it. It has its issues, and the predominant number of gamers is still based on PlayStation and Xbox when it comes to franchises like your Call of Duty, like your GTA. As far as your experience with sports games on PC, how would you say it's gone so far?
If you're not playing online, it's actually not a bad experience. One of the big sports titles I really enjoy is FIFA. The big difference is when you play a sports game on PC, everything just runs smoother. When you have a console, you're limited to the constraints of that console. That's one of the biggest issues for gamers out there, is that, you know, what's going to be coming out here in the next couple months when it comes in terms of the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. That's what you're going to be limited with until that mid-generation update that gets that boost, that gets that fine tuning, if you will, to make that generation last another 5-6 years. You're kind of stuck with that. So from a technology standpoint, consoles go obsolete, if you will, in terms of technology fairly quickly. With PC, you can constantly upgrade and everything runs so much smoother. For sports games, definitely your Madden, your FIFAs, your NBA 2K. On PC, it just runs smoother. Like when you play on a console, it almost feels like it's a little grainy. Maybe it's a little more gritty. I'm like, you may not notice it until you actually play that sports title on a PC. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is playing like butter. Like it is so smooth. And then you go back to the console, you're like, wait a minute. I can now see a major difference here. So you get a better experience on the PC, but the problem is that multiplayer life isn't there. The developer doesn't support it. It's full of people with cheating programs to just make it really incredibly unfair. It's well documented. EA knows about it. Take-Two knows about it. They don't do anything about it because that's not where the players are. They're on the console. So if you're a sports gamer, you're kind of screwed, for lack of better terminology here. You have to go console if you want to play online. PC's not the way to go.
And the other thing, John, that we can touch on a bit here. So with 2K and EA games in general, so again, your major sports games, they are going to make the PC version kind of your Xbox One PS4 version. So there's going to be two different games as far as NBA 2K goes, FIFA, Madden, and so on and so forth. The upgraded next-gen version is only going to be on those new Xbox consoles and the PS5. The old version is what's going to get ported over to PC. Again, I don't really know what that means. It could just be a graphical change. It could be some new features here and there that are only next-gen capable. PlayStation 5 with their crazy controller, it's probably going to support some extra stuff that the PS4 controller can't end up supporting. I don't know if you're going to be blowing into the controller for sports games, but you never know. So that's one of the big things is that controller capability. The graphical change is definitely another factor. Again, in-game features really don't 100% know what that's going to look like. But again, it shows where EA and 2K currently are, or Take-Two, when it comes to PC gaming for their sports games, because they're saying, we're not even going to give you that fully upgraded next-gen level game. We're going to give you a port of last-gen's game. So it just shows what John has already said as far as the player population really being heavily on those consoles. So if you want to compete in those games to a multiplayer level without your cheaters and actually being supported by the developers, a console is definitely a direction you have to start looking. Okay, sir, we have a lot to touch here. Where do you want to start in? You want to dive a little bit into our specs to talk about what we're looking difference-wise as far as actual graphics, memory size, different things like that?
I want to start with the fact that we have a new cool little overlay for this whole segment.
Oh, yes.
I'm going to go ahead and transition to it now. So, this is so stupid. I've been trying to do this forever, and now we finally have a topic that it makes sense on. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, without any further delay, I give you PlayStation 5 versus Xbox Series X overlay on OBS live here on LvLUp, live on OTN Media's Twitch channel. This is absolutely fantastic. Right there, you have us incredibly miniature size in your upper corner, and then you have a beautiful image of the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. Yes, both look like great book holders. Thank you, chat. Squirkle coming in again with fire. I absolutely love it. So we have the Xbox mini fridge, the Xbox thick boy, if you will, and the PlayStation 5, aka your next router from Verizon. See Blake. No, I want to see you. Appreciate it, Blake. I'm right here for you. So here's our new overlay. So everything we're going to talk about, we're going to have web pages and websites and everything to really back everything up. And we'll see what some of the tech gurus out there are saying about this. So Joey, I think we should kick it off with specs first. So, let's see, you laugh, but Phil Spencer used an Xbox X Mini one as a book holder. You know what? When you have that kind of money, I don't care what you do. So we'll just go ahead and zoom in here. So Joey, let's just start off with the specs here because, look, let's put our fandom aside here. Let's put your Xbox shill off to the side. I'll put my Sony fanboy off to the side here real quick. There really is no wrong answer with this generation of console. There really isn't. I mean, they're both incredible pieces of hardware. They're both incredible pieces of technology, of entertainment and gaming. You can't go wrong with either one. Now, with that being said, there are some differences, and some of these differences are going to affect different types of gamers out there. So let's start with the hottest of topics at the moment. That was the price point, because Sony decided to drag their feet like absolute madmen through quicksand on actually releasing this. And I mean, from a Sony fanboy, Joey, to you, the Xbox shill here, thanks to Microsoft. I mean, really, Sony delayed it because they saw how low the Series X and the Series S came in at, and they had to rethink their pricing strategy.
Yeah, I mean, this comes down to a lot of different things. So it's not Sony's fault in a sense. Really, it came down to both parties wanted to wait for the other to announce first. It was a little bit of a cat and mouse game, and I'm glad someone eventually leaked one, so we ended up getting them before November. Because for a while there, it felt like the prices might come out right before the consoles did. But we did get a leak from Brad Sams. He ended up leaking the Xbox Series S, and then
Uh-oh. Is Discord doing this again?
Can you hear me yet?
Yeah, you're good. We've gone months without Discord doing this, and now all of a sudden, on one of the hottest topics of the year, Discord, you're failing me, my mind. Oh my.
So can you hear me yet?
I can hear you now, yeah.
Okay, cool. It's funny because I know it happens when your face goes crazy. Like you start looking around, and I'm like, he can't hear me anymore. Good times, fam. So yes, they were playing cat and mouse. Eventually, there was a leak that came out. Xbox ended up announcing the Xbox Series S. It came in at that crazy price point of $299, and then the Xbox Series S, and then the Xbox Series X came out at $499. That's their big boy, the black console, the big powerful console. The white one being that smaller price determinant console. So then PlayStation came out. We already know what PlayStation's prices are going to be. It's, again, not public knowledge, but it was leaked. They were going to be a lot higher than what they ended up being. The initial actual PlayStation Digital Edition was supposed to be set at $499, and the mainline PlayStation 5 was going to be $599. So a very, very big price difference from the $399 and $499 that we ended up getting. Again, it's a $100 difference. That might not mean a whole bunch to every single gamer, but for a lot of different people out there, that is a very big price difference. Paying, again, $500 for a full console with that disc drive versus $600, especially in the current economic times, that can be a giant difference. Now, for the Xbox side, they have come out with the All Access, and we can touch on that a bit later, John. But the whole monthly plan does help cut down that cost a bit. So overall, as PlayStation gamers, go ahead and thank Microsoft for releasing that price early, or Brad Sams for leaking the Xbox Series S, as that did end up vitally shifting the way the market ended up playing out, now with those PlayStation prices being $100 lower than they would have been.
Yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, it's a win for gamers. I think it's safe to say both companies are going to be taking a loss in comparison to past generations when consoles came out. So, again, the weirdness of 2020 continues, where not only are we dealing with an international pandemic, not only are we dealing with hot topics in our country and around the world, but we're also dealing with game developers, game studios, and console designers becoming friendly to gamers. It's such a weird year here. So we get the price drop from PlayStation because of Microsoft. Release date 2 days apart. If you are the person that says, "Oh well, I want the first available," 2 days apart. Stop it. Stop it. Xbox Series X November 10th, November 12th for the PlayStation 5. Just 2 separate days. Key exclusives. Now, Joey, something that you and I have talked about multiple times here is PlayStation for a very long time has had those key exclusives that really make having a PlayStation worth it. If you are a traditional gamer that enjoys, platformer games or strategy games, or like your God of Wars, your Gran Turismo, some of your racing games that are exclusively only on PlayStation, it's a really good argument why you want to go with the PlayStation. It's kind of interesting because a lot of those exclusives this go around, Joey, and something we were hoping for, are going to be available on PC. So a lot of Sony fanboys out there are a little hurt over this, but I actually think this is a very good thing for gamers, especially if you're a PC gamer. It's not, Sony's shelling money out to Microsoft now, which in turn is going to be funneled back into Xbox. It's really a win, a massive win. And if anything, to me, it's kind of a breath of fresh air having been in the Sony ecosystem for so long, and them maybe not being as friendly to gamers, now seeing that there is an option outside of the PlayStation 5 that I can play some of these amazing titles.
I mean, I hate to say it, but Sony's not doing it for the gamer in this move. They're doing it for the money. And I mean, you can argue Microsoft's doing the same exact thing, to be completely honest. Like, when it comes down to it, they saw how much money Microsoft made by making this move. So for those of you who don't know, Microsoft puts all of their first-party titles out on console and PC the same day. So it's day one release on both platforms. I think this started maybe a year ago, something around there, a year or a year and a half ago. So it is somewhat new. Now, since then, with these platforms and games being all put together in one big bundle, we're seeing Microsoft really pop off in sales. Sea of Thieves was a late release to PC, but was on the Steam top charts for a very long time, like 3 or 4 months after it released. Halo, the Master Chief Collection, came to Steam and did extremely well. Microsoft Flight Simulator was one of the top selling games throughout all of August. So there's a number of really good examples that we've seen from the Microsoft side. So Sony decided, well, let's dip our toe in the water and see what we get out of it as well. So they eventually released Horizon Zero Dawn, one of the big PlayStation 4 exclusives, to PC. I think it was the first week of August that it went out. Again, top 5 seller on Steam. So what Sony and Microsoft are now realizing is, yes, we could keep everything bundled to the console, or we could open it up to PC gamers as well. And I'm not going to say they're going to double their profits, but I think they pull in a huge margin of profits because there are just so many PC gamers out there. So now your Horizon Zero Dawns, your Gears of War, everything, and we're just going to say doubles because I don't have numbers in front of me, but it's going to considerably grow as far as those profits. And your ecosystem grows. Everyone that wants to play Gears of War or Sea of Thieves has to make an Xbox Live account. Everyone that has to play PlayStation games currently does not have to make a PlayStation account. I believe that will be a thing probably come 2021, 2022, because PlayStation wants those emails. How are you going to contact people? Their email address, their credit card information. You want ways to continue to keep them in your ecosystem. So I think either microtransactions or some kind of login with their account is going to be a thing coming in the future. But John, as you said, as PC gamers, as gamers in general, I think this is huge. I get it. For some reason, Xbox fans, there's some that are mad about this, but PlayStation fans really take this to heart. I don't really get why. I guess it's just the whole we are here for exclusives mentality. Like, when you go to Xbox, you're talking services, you're talking some games, but you're talking services. When you go to PlayStation, almost everyone is talking exclusive games, which is great. It's a huge win for PlayStation. But for some reason, people think with these exclusives going to PC, whether they're day one or whether they're eventually like 6 months or a year or whatever, Sony decides to put them on PC, it becomes like a very big damage point for a lot of Sony fanboys. Not like a normal Sony player like John or I, or not necessarily me for this last generation, but people who play PlayStation compared to someone who's going to fight for it tooth and nail. I don't really see any negative to this as far as anything goes. Like, yes, you might sell a few less consoles because PC gamers are going to end up jumping on the train with your titles on PC. But I don't see enough negatives to really warrant all the negative energy currently out there on social media.
I'm going to let you into a little secret here, Joey. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to expose all the Sony fanboys out there on why this is such a big deal to them and why they're freaking out as much, is because for generations, that's all Sony has had to rely on is console exclusives. When it comes to actual hardware, yes, while it is still impressive, the one thing that Xbox and Microsoft have been able to do generation after generation is really push that envelope of technology and what they can pack into this console. PlayStation, I mean, yeah, they've been able to keep up with them, but we're starting to see, especially with this generation, from a power standpoint, from an overall system standpoint, Xbox has taken that lead. That's something that Sony fanboys have known for a while, is that Xbox, when it first came out, a lot of people were like, oh, it's Microsoft versus Sony. Microsoft has no chance. Sony's been in the game forever. So the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2 did incredibly great. The jump graphically and gameplay-wise from the PlayStation 1 to the PlayStation 2 was earth-shattering. And then the Xbox comes out, and it was just as great. And the one thing that Xbox had that PlayStation fanboys wished we had was Halo. Halo was a massive, massive title that for the first time, Sony fanboys, PlayStation fanboys, were jealous over a console exclusive. I mean, that was a real wake-up call for a lot of Sony fanboys out there was, oh, so this is what it feels like when we can't play a game that everyone in the world is literally talking about. And this is like at the dawn of esports becoming a massive thing. Halo is absolutely taking off. So yeah, it was a massive deal. And then the 360 came out. And then there was the whole joke of the Red Ring of Death. There's a whole reason why PlayStation fanboys still bring up the Red Ring of Death, is because they will point out any single small flaw in any console to protect their fragile little egos when it comes to the fragility, if you will, of the PlayStation, because all they still have is the console exclusives. So now, with Sony bending a knee, allowing these console exclusives to go to PC, Sony fanboys have nothing else to argue about. So yeah, of course they're going to be upset about it. And I think it's absolutely ridiculous that they're upset about it. But yeah, congratulations. I mean, this is gaming evolved. Like, this is what it's supposed to be. Cross-platform is a thing, and it needs to be expanded even more. So yeah, I mean, that's the reason why Sony fanboys are upset, because that's the last thing they have to stand on to try to say PlayStation is better than Xbox, because Xbox is making strides, leaps, and bounds. PlayStation, I don't know. They kind of seem like they're struggling a little bit.
You went a little ham there. I was not expecting that angle.
There you go. You're welcome.
I'm a little lost for words there. Wow. Yeah. Hello. So yeah.
Okay. Hold on a second. I am not roasting myself. Look, I like the PlayStation ecosystem, but I am not a Sony fanboy. I have criticized Sony constantly here on the show, on social media and everything. Don't even give me that crap, Blake. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely partial to our systems here and there. I don't think either one of us has gone as crazy as some of these people on some of these social media platforms. I will live and die for Game Pass. Don't get me wrong. I think it's an excellent service for gaming in general. But when it comes to some of these arguments that people make, like John, I think I've said this on the show before, I've been in arguments with people. Like, there was this one Sony guy, and I'm not going to use any names. He's like, well, Xbox loses because I'm just going to get Game Pass on PC. And I'm like, dude, do you realize they went from getting none of your money to now getting money because you're subscribing to their service on another platform? And I think that's what people are missing out here. Xbox does not care if you buy their console. Yes, they want to sell consoles. Yes, they want to get them in your homes, but it doesn't come down to the consoles. It really comes down to signing up for their services. However they can get you to sign up for a Game Pass, however they can get you to sign up for something in their ecosystem, then you're committed to it. So they can go from getting like a hardcore PlayStation fanboy is never going to buy an Xbox console. It's just never going to happen. But could they possibly pull them in to play a Fable or an Avowed or even a Halo when it launches on PC? Maybe they only sub for a month. Maybe they only buy one game outright, but that's still more money than those guys would have ever spent when it comes to that particular system. So I think that's one thing that a lot of people are missing out on is the different strategies here. On the Sony side, it's all about the console, which is not necessarily a bad thing either. Yes, they're eventually going to put some games on PC, and it's probably going to be some delay. I've heard 6 to 12 months on a delay from the initial launch on console to PC. Honestly, I think that's a really good move. I think something in the 3 to 6 month range would be awesome. It says, hey, there's still a great reason to have our console. But on top of that, if you want to play on PC, it's still coming to you guys as well. I personally really like that strategy. I actually like it better than day one from Xbox from a business perspective. As a PC gamer, I love that Xbox is dropping everything day one, though. But when it comes down to it, John, I think that's just a big factor in general is when we look at how these systems are built, how they're going to end up releasing content. With PlayStation, again, that one entry point being the console right now, again, PC is going to come down the road, but they have to find a way to get the console out the door. Whether that means great exclusive games, whether that means awesome hardware, whether that means a unique controller that you can blow into, which for some reason is a thing, they have reasons to buy their console. It could even be something simple like Spider-Man coming to the Avengers game, which I hate exclusivity like that, but it's a reason people are going to buy a console. Again, I think bigger exclusives are probably going to go a little bit of a longer way than one character being included into a game. But it's one of those things that Sony's going to spend a lot of money when it comes to exclusivity. And we saw them do it again here with the Final Fantasy purchase. Final Fantasy 16. Again, we don't have all the details on if it's limited because I'm not going to say Sony lied, but they twisted their words a little bit in some of those slides because I do know that some of the games they put as full exclusives are not full exclusives. They are timed exclusives. So again, Final Fantasy could be a full exclusive or it could be timed, but regardless, Sony spent a very pretty penny on that, and it's going to be a console seller. It might not be the biggest thing when it comes to North America, but John, you and I both know that Asians love Final Fantasy. It sells extremely well in Asia when it goes over there. So Final Fantasy is going to be a system seller when it comes to a lot of that Asian audience. I think that's a huge win for Sony. They already control the Asian area, and now you're putting this exclusive on top of it. So even if people are looking at, that $299 price for the Xbox Series S looks really good, but Sony ended up with Final Fantasy for some limited time or possibly full-time exclusivity for a Final Fantasy franchise, that is very, very big. Okay, sir, I think we should dive into services, but before that, let's look at the actual specs. So we do have a few big boys out here. Sony coming in with a very tall console, Xbox coming in with a very thick, the fridge console, as well as a very small one that John has titled Small Boy for the Xbox Series S. And then we do have that PlayStation Digital Edition as well. So John, break down a little bit of what we're looking at, where the power comes from these consoles, and what each advantage is going to look like.
I'm too busy trolling Blake in chat. Okay, I'm sorry. We're asking about the power, correct?
Yeah. So overall, what are our specs looking like? What?
Cool.
What do I get from a PlayStation versus an Xbox here?
Pretty much the exact same thing. Small differences though. Processor, pretty much the same identical chip from AMD. That has been going on for generations now. 8-core, 3.5 gigahertz, AMD Zen 2 CPU in these bad boys. So there's that. RAM, you're still coming in at the 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 for both as well. Both have a custom storage device, both SSDs. Sony really amped their SSD up quite a bit. In fact, I believe they spent about 27 minutes talking about their SSD during their spec release there for the PlayStation 5. Fascinating stuff. Give me an M.2 drive and I might consider listening again. 825 gig custom for the PlayStation 5. 1 terabyte custom solid state for the Xbox Series X. Resolution, both can upscale to 8K, both have native 4K, and both can upscale games that aren't in 4K to 4K. So if the game is made for 4K, you will have native 4K, so there's no upscaling. If the game is designed in high def and not 4K, so like if it's a 2K game or less, it will upscale to 4K. So that's something both of these bad boys do here. Now the Series S does not have native 4K. That will upscale as well. So that will be a pure upscale on the Series S. Again, it comes in at a lower price point. It's not necessarily a bad thing for the upscaling, but it is something to consider. But again, at that price point, it's still a steal. Frame rate, both up to 120 frames per second, which, congratulations, the human eye can't really read that anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Both will have 4K UHD Blu-rays, so except for the digital drive for the PlayStation 5 as well. So there's that as well, and I believe the Series S as well. So the one big thing to focus on here is the GPU. Now, this is where a lot of Xbox fanboys out there like to start swinging their controller around. I caught Joey off guard. That was great.
I was curious where you were going to go.
So, all right, cool. Allow me to introduce to you teraflops. Yes, it is a very funny word. It may remind some people of floppy disks, floppy disk drives. If you're really old, the old school organ drive. It has nothing to do with that. This is pretty awesome, right? 12 teraflops for the Xbox Series X is a massive, massive essential graphics processing unit. I mean, it is going to be able to render some of the best images, colors, shades, everything through this amazing piece of technology. Now, PlayStation, I'm sorry, you guys are only coming in at 10.3 teraflops. So yes, 1.7 teraflops is the difference between these two beasts. Now, you might be sitting here and be like, oh, Xbox is more powerful. Technically, yes. Now, will you be able to notice a difference between the 1.7 teraflops? Probably not. Unless you know what you're looking for, you're really not going to notice a major difference between 1.7 teraflops. Now, when you compare that to like if you compare that to like a measurement of storage, like if you say gigabyte or a terabyte or a megabyte, like you're talking like essentially going from 1 gig to a 2 gig or 1 gig to a 5 gig. Like it's a jump. It's not that massive. Yes, you're going to get a lot more from that 1.7, but it's not like you're going from a megabyte to a terabyte. Like it's not that kind of technological jump in 1.7 teraflops. So keep that in perspective. Yes, it does mean the Xbox Series X is a more powerful machine. 100% agree with that. But it's only by 1.7 teraflops. And really, the average gamer is not going to notice a difference. So all of the Xbox fanboys out there swinging your controllers around, cool, awesome, you can do that. PlayStation fanboys, don't worry about 1.7. It's really not that big of a difference.
Yeah, absolutely, John. I think that's a big thing to say because we heard the teraflop thing over and over last generation with the Xbox. I can't even remember these names. The Xbox One X, their naming is unique. Or not so unique, depending how you look at it. When we look at some of the other stuff, though, so I know one thing that's been brought up, you said the GPU already. The RAM is another big one. Again, not a giant difference, but Xbox is going to be running 320-bit for their 16 gigabit sticks versus 256 for the PlayStation. Again, like John said, it's not going to be the end of the world difference. I mean, if you want to touch on this, you can, John, but it is slightly in favor of Xbox and that power argument there as well.
Yeah, no,
anything you understand that one?
No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, from a spec position, the Xbox Series X is a more powerful machine, hands down. Is that something that should really be taken into consideration? Look, if you're a tech geek and you want the biggest and baddest, then yes, absolutely, take it into account. But at the end of the day, if you are relying on 1.7 teraflops, if you're relying on the custom SSD difference between the two when both are going to offer external options as well to add more storage, it's honestly, don't look at it that way. Again, like we started with this whole segment, I've been going on the entire show. Both of these machines are absolutely incredible. You will get what you want out of either one of these machines. Don't let 1.7 teraflops, and chat's killing me with the term teraflop, because I'm going to read some of these real quick, because I think it's absolutely hysterical. In a country voice, Joey, I'm going to wait till you're done drinking. I don't want you to spit.
Oh, yeah, please enlighten us.
Tell me about their teraflop. There you go. That one's from Squircle. And then this one's from Blake. Boy, I'll tell you what, when I drive my F450 into town, them girls be teraflopping. That is fantastic. I need more teraflop memes. That is freaking amazing. But yeah, I mean, from a strict power spec position, yes, the Xbox Series X, hands down the winner in terms of power. But again, it's not by a landslide like a lot of people are trying to make it out to be. It's just slightly better in the terms of those specs.
Absolutely. So we won't go over every little spec difference. Xbox Series X typically runs just slightly higher than PlayStation in most of these differences. A couple more to hit on, though, in particular that do make a difference: internal storage. So both PlayStations are going to run 825 gigabytes SSDs. For the Xbox Series X, it's going to run 1 terabyte, and the Xbox Series S, being much smaller, is going to run 512 gigabytes. For me, John, 1 terabyte, obviously the winner. It's the biggest storage here. That's a huge point. 825, I think, is very comparable. Yes, you're down like arguably around 200 gigabytes. I don't think it's the end of the world. Like you said, there's going to be storage options available for both consoles. It's going to come with a price. You're going to have to pay a little bit more to make up that 200 gigabyte difference. But again, not the end of the world. Now, for the gamers who are looking at the smaller version of the Xbox Series S, you are considerably lower. We're talking a 500 gigabyte difference to the bigger brother of the Xbox Series X, and about a 300 gigabyte difference between the PlayStation 5. So Xbox Series S owners are going to come in at a much smaller size SSD. Again, it's going to be very powerful. They're all really strong next-gen SSDs, but your raw storage size will be smaller, so you'll probably have to look to upgrade that. I don't know. I would say probably after 7 to 10 games. And one thing with it is going to be it running at a lower resolution. So it's going to run 1440 for the most part, or that's really what it's built to run. So with that being said, a lot of these game files are going to be smaller. They're saying it's going to be about 30% smaller than what the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X gigabyte storage is going to end up looking like for these games. So again, it might not fill up as quickly as we think, but 500 does seem small in today's day and age, with Call of Duty taking up like 200 gigabytes, it feels like, on a PC.
Yeah, I mean, and it's definitely something to keep in mind, like Joey was saying. Like, I mean, yeah, it's 175 gigabyte difference, essentially, right around that, okay, between the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. Yeah, you're looking at maybe 3-4 games. I'm going to be completely honest with you. If you have a terabyte full of games downloaded onto your console, delete some, because you're not playing them. I mean, yes, I get it. Like these are more than just gaming machines. These are entertainment centers. It's something that both something Microsoft and Sony started moving towards with the launch of the Xbox and the PlayStation 2. That's when we really started seeing that move in that entertainment console direction as well. Prior to your smart TVs, prior to your Apple TVs, prior to your Rokus, prior to anything like that, if you wanted Netflix on your TV, you had to get a PlayStation or some kind of digital device that plugged into your TV. Now, technology has evolved. It comes pre-built in a lot of flat screen smart televisions now. But this is consoles trying to remain relevant. They are entertainment devices. So you're going to be using them for more than just video games. You're going to be storing screenshots, maybe music. Who knows? Maybe you'll be able to stream with overlays from these beasts as well. That's something that, may or may not happen. We'll see. We'll find out. So a lot of different things that go into it. So, yeah, at the end of the day, the storage can be a make or break point. But again, you still have options. While, yes, a terabyte versus 125 gigs is a decent difference between those two, we're going to throw the S out of there because the S, I feel like, is targeting a very specific group of gamers versus these other two. It's not something that, I mean, yes, for some people it's going to be make or break. I don't hold it that high. I don't think it's that big of a make or break deal. But for some people, it can definitely be that way. But when you have the external options available as well to increase your storage size, I mean, that always has to be a factor as well.
So again, Xbox definitely wins with the Series X there, but like John said, that Series S is a very big difference. You didn't touch on that too much. It is a bit of a different audience that they're trying to cater to, but that is really the big thing to point out here. It is considerably smaller than both of the other two options on there. So if you're looking at the Series S route, it's going to be a great console, but again, it's going to come in less powerful and definitely less storage size than these other two. Last thing to touch on, and this goes a little bit more into the esports side of things, is your output resolution. So again, native 4K coming on the PlayStation 5 as well as the Xbox Series X. The Series S will come in targeted at 1440. As John said earlier, that can be scaled up. Now, the big thing is frames per second. So on a lot of these tests, Sony is struggling with the PS5 to go at the 60 frames per second for most of these games. So what they are doing, to my knowledge, John, and I don't know what your sheet has, but my 3 sheets do have this as well. They are targeting 30 frames per second. So they're hoping to get to 60 frames per second with their first-party titles and with some third-party titles, but they are overall aiming to at least hit 30 with a look at 60. Onto the Xbox side for both of them, they are looking at 60 as the bench. They want it to be the bottom level, the floor in a sense, targeting up to 120 with some of their bigger titles. So if frames per second is a big thing for you, Xbox is dominating in this category, at least to my sources here, as well as the tech test. Again, the Series S comes in at 1440. So it is hitting those frames, but at a much smaller resolution. So this, to me, is one of the big areas that Xbox Series X is shining right now. But again, like John said earlier, anything above 60 frames per second may not be super visible. It's not visible to the human eye. One thing I do notice is that it runs a lot smoother when it's above 60 frames per second. But other than that, like visually seeing it, it's not really something you're going to see super easily.
Yeah, so the big thing to take away here is if Sony is aiming for 30 frames per second, the jump from 30 to 60 is massive. You will notice a huge difference, even if you're not a gamer, even if you don't have a trained eye and you're not looking for it, you will notice a massive difference. 60 really is the benchmark. 60 is what should be considered standard. The fact that Sony is struggling to reach that is something that you definitely want to take into consideration if you're a gamer. That's something you definitely want to consider or take into consideration if you consider yourself an amateur esport pro, or if you consider yourself a semi-pro, or you're an aspiring pro. You definitely want the best kind of resolution. You definitely want the better frames per second out there. That's going to give you that better competitive advantage. 30 frames per second will hold you back. That is very low. That is like 2010 and earlier kind of graphic level of frames per second. That's not a good thing to think about. If you're looking at the PlayStation 5, that's something you definitely would want to consider. That is also something that hopefully with software updates over time, PlayStation would be able to figure out. But again, that's one of those things that may not be fixed until that mid-generation update, when Sony has time to play around with its readings from the launch editions of PlayStation 5s in order to make that difference. So really, when you take a look at the battle of the consoles, you have to look at it in phases. Phase 1 and Phase 2, the launch phase, and then that mid-generation update, and see how that really happens. PlayStation is, from what it sounds like, if you're looking at the frames per second here, is going to be banking on that mid-generation update to really push it ahead of Xbox, if that is something that is something that is concerning to you as a gamer.
And I just want to clarify a few things. So again, Sony's floor is 30 frames per second. They're going to aim to hit 60. Xbox, their ceiling is 120. They're probably going to hit 60 on most of their games as well. So again, it sounds like a giant difference because one floor is much higher than the other ceiling. But again, most of those games are probably going to come in at the same point at 60 frames per second. Again, some of the first-party Xbox stuff, I think Gears of War and Halo have been confirmed. They're both going to hit 120, which again is huge for competitive play, versus Sony really capping their stuff at 60 when you look at it. But again, Sony not really known for their multiplayer as much as they're known for those crazy immersive single-player experiences. I think one of the other things, John, so we make it sound like 60 frames per second is very normal. This comes from the PC gamer side of us.
Exactly.
On consoles, this is not normal. I believe both consoles last generation, I want to say the Xbox One X may have broken this. I think they hit 60 frames per second. But for the most part, consoles were running at 30 frames per second. A lot of third-party developers, so like your Assassin's Creed coming from Ubisoft, a lot of these other games, only 30 frames per second as well. So John and I talking like 60 frames per second being a super staple is because on PC, we're running much, much higher frames per second. On console, this is kind of a new thing and will feel very next gen to a lot of different gamers on console.
Now, so I did Google this real quick. Now, your frames per second does vary based upon the actual resolution of the game too. So
Right.
If it's a native 4K game, you have a better chance of hitting that 60 frames per second rate versus upscaling. Upscaling will take a hit on your frames per second. It's just how it is. Both consoles, both the PS4 and the Xbox One, were able to hit 60 frames per second, but it was only at 90p and 1080p. So anything above 1080, you couldn't go up to 1440 on it and still get 60 frames per second. So it was limited with the technology that it was built with. Again, something that you have to take in consideration when you're looking at a console game is you are kind of stuck with that technology for at least 8 years in most cases. So both older gen consoles were able to get to 60 again with that resolution being scaled down though.
Okay, guys, tech specs are boring. They're fun for some people. Boring. They're not fun for others. So we're not going to spend much more time on that. The only other thing I want to hit, John, is VR capability. This one is heavily in Sony's court. If you are into VR, Sony supports VR. There is some question marks with it because they have shut down a lot of their native VR studios. But again, they are accepting titles from different third parties out there as well. So if you're all about the goggles, if you're all about that immersive VR experience, Sony is 100% the console maker to go with, the ecosystem to go with at this point. If you're looking at a console and not looking at a PC. Again, Xbox could support it in the future. There is some rumors. Well, it's not a rumor. They're definitely working with HP and Valve on a VR headset. We just don't know if it's Microsoft for the PC side or if it's just Microsoft for the business side, or if it will eventually come to Xbox consoles as well. That part's kind of gray at this point. If you want guaranteed VR, Sony is guaranteed to support it. And to our knowledge, that's the only console that has confirmed that they're supporting VR at this point. Okay, dude, I'm done with tech specs. I mean, that was fun. You did a great job breaking all that down. I'm sure the listeners of the podcast and the live listeners love it as well. Let's talk a little bit about services. And then from there, let's talk some next-gen games because both of us are gamers and we are hyped for some of these games coming out. For the PlayStation services, again, I have not been on PlayStation for a couple years now. Can you break quite a few years. Can you break down some of the services that we get on PlayStation and how they kind of size up versus what you've experienced from your short time on Xbox as well?
Yeah. Sony, I feel like, in my personal opinion, I feel like Sony's behind. I feel like Xbox offers the better library of games on their Xbox Live system. I believe the multiplayer, what Xbox Live was able to do was really force Sony to get out of their comfort zone and actually care about their online play, because that is something that has plagued PlayStation going all the way back to PlayStation 2. Was the PlayStation Network really just kind of, it almost felt like it was neglected. For the longest time, PlayStation fans were like, hey, look, we don't have to pay to play online. And we're like, yeah, cool, it's great. But also our servers are absolute garbage. Connection issues constantly. It wasn't stable. It was just a bad overall experience. The lag was terrible. That short time when I jumped over to Xbox, that lag wasn't there. The servers were better. It was a better overall online quality experience. So I feel like that forced Sony to really get out of their box and take online gaming seriously, and they reinvented the PlayStation Network, made it into a subscription-based service like Xbox Live, and it really improved over time. So it's Xbox forcing Sony to improve their own gaming ecosystem as well. Even right now, Xbox Live, the Game Pass, is a better deal than PlayStation Network, in my opinion. PlayStation Network gives you access to a handful of free games. They give you certain free games every month as part of the PlayStation Network that you can download if you so choose so. But when you compare that to what you get out of the Xbox Live and Xbox Live Game Pass, it blows the PlayStation Network out of the water. I mean, it's really, again, in my personal opinion, I feel like this absolutely goes to Xbox, and PlayStation is still playing catch up.
Chad is telling you need better Wi-Fi for your PlayStation Network, John.
I don't use Wi-Fi. I hardwire it, but thank you.
Good stuff there. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, and everyone knows that. I'm a huge Game Pass supporter. I think it's giant for the industry, just the amount of value you get from Game Pass, whether you're on console, whether you're on PC, whether you're xCloud with the mobile launching on Tuesday. It's just a really, really strong service. Xbox Live, I think that's one thing people can argue against because Xbox and PlayStation charging for their services. Again, I think the price will eventually go away, but I think it's probably going to be once more and more people do navigate their subscriptions over to Game Pass instead because it is included in Game Pass. And that's a very big win for everyone in that marketplace, in that particular community. As far as online play, yeah, I haven't been on a PlayStation since PS2. I've played on friends' PlayStations. I've played on a PS4 and a PS3. I did encounter issues every single one of those times. Now, to kind of remedy that in a sense, I was in a college dorm room for a lot of those. So again, the internet in college dorm rooms may not be the best overall. So you can argue that that could be some of the issues that came up with it. At the same point, playing Xbox in college, I never ran into those issues. I could have just been lucky. But overall, the stability for Xbox has been really good for me with the online play. The competitive level, it seemed very easy to beat people in PlayStation games. Again, it could just be my limited experience. But when it came to the online, for shooters in particular, it felt much stronger in Xbox. I am slightly biased in that sense because I played competitively shooters on Xbox. But yeah, so I think service-wise, I think those are big, big wins. Now, backwards compatibility is another one. When it comes to Xbox, you're going to be backwards compatible all the way back to the original Xbox. Not every single title, but for the most part, a big majority of those titles are now forwards compatible. So if you played them on the original Xbox, Xbox 360, Xbox One, they will now be playable day one. Thousands of games, I think it's like 4,000 something in total, are coming with you to your new Xbox Series X. Now, PlayStation has jumped in. They've done some backwards compatibility. Last I heard, it's going to be about 100 games from your PS4 that will be playable on your new PlayStation 5 if you end up going that route. That's a big win as well. I think that's huge. PlayStation at one point hated backwards compatibility. I think this is another big win where you can argue it might have been Microsoft that pushed them this direction, but I think it's a huge win for gamers. There are some great games on PS4, whether it be God of War, Spider-Man, Horizon Zero Dawn. Now those are available to play on your PlayStation 5. I don't think it's a day one thing. I could be wrong. I want to say it's a little bit delayed for some of the games. A good number of them will be available on day one, but some are still being worked through that backwards compatibility. xCloud is another big win for Xbox, having the ability to play on your mobile device. Again, I don't think this is for every gamer, but if you eventually want to pick up a phone or pick up a tablet and play a console game on it, that is now an option for Xbox players. John, you can fill me in on this. I think PlayStation has something along these lines. I don't think it's cloud gaming. I think it's like a console mirroring type of system. Is that right?
For the game itself, or I'm sorry.
Like, I feel like if you're on PlayStation, there's a way to like mirror it to other devices, like to your PC or to like some mobile devices, maybe. Is that a thing?
I mean, you can do that. I mean, you can also use like a capture card and everything and stuff like that too. But like, I don't know. I feel like it's definitely easier with an Xbox because it's all within the Microsoft family, so it's easier to do. But PlayStation, it's doable, but I feel like it just requires more steps.
One of the other things they announced, and I don't quite get this, again, not as a PlayStation gamer myself, but it was like right toward the end of the showcase they did this week. Is it like 25 games or something now being included with the PlayStation Plus membership that are PS4 kind of like greatest hits? That if you pay that subscription price, you can play them on PlayStation 5?
Yeah, so they're essentially offering. So
it's complicated, I know. Yeah. Like I didn't quite understand it.
So for backwards compatibility, they are going to offer a handful of games that are not a little bit more than a handful of games that are backwards compatible. Kind of going back on what they originally said. They're going to offer digital versions of other PlayStation games that you can purchase for a cheaper price to download onto your console if you want to play it. So if you already own the game and it's not supported, then yeah, it's still technically there, but you just have to repurchase it digitally to put onto your device. It's overly complicated. I just don't understand why Sony just doesn't go the same route Microsoft does. I understand it's technology. It's hard. Backwards compatibility might be too difficult for Sony. I don't know, but I feel like that's something that should be considered from Sony.
Absolutely. So we're fans of backwards compatibility. I can't say I play a ton of backwards compatible games, even with Xbox supporting so many. There are definitely some I've dove back into kind of for that nostalgia factor. But am I going to get a new console purely for backwards compatibility? No, I would just play my current console. So I don't think it's a factor to really make someone buy something necessarily. But again, if you're someone that wants to carry your library with you, and it's definitely something to consider if you want those new games as well as access to your backwards compatibility library as well. Okay, John, I want to talk games. There was one thing. Oh, yes. So the other thing I want to talk about before we just jump into games, this is kind of game related. It's big news that came out for Sony fans. They kind of backpedaled a lot on this one, to be completely honest. So Xbox and Microsoft came out originally and said, look, we are going to support everyone in the Xbox One ecosystem, the current gen ecosystem, for 2 years after our launch. We want anyone to get our first 2 years of games, whether they can afford an Xbox Series X or S, or whether they just want to stay on their current console. Again, based on personal preference, economic reasons, whatever reason, they wanted them to have access to those 2 games. So Xbox got a ton of flack from a lot of people, a lot of support as well from Xbox fans. But from the media itself, they're like, well, this is going to hold back the next generation of games. Now people have to design for these other consoles that are way old and not quite up to hardware specs. And PlayStation kind of bashed them for it. They're like, why on earth would anyone do this? Why is this a thing? This is a terrible idea. PlayStation said, PlayStation players, you're going to have to upgrade to PS5 to get our first-party titles. Again, guys, this does not include your EAs or your Take-Twos or any of these third-party games. Just purely PlayStation titles, your God of Wars, your Ratchet and Clank, stuff like that. They said day one, PlayStation 5 only. It has now come out that they're going to support their games on PlayStation 4 for up to 4 years after launch. Again, not saying anything that third parties are doing. They could support for 1 year. They could support for 4. We really don't know. But for Sony and PlayStation first-party games, they're now going to be available on your PS4 for another somewhat around 3 to 4 years. Again, they could change their mind, but that's what they've publicly said at this point.
Yeah, and I like that move from Sony. I like them going back on that. It makes sense. Personally, I think 4 years might be a little too long. I get it. You don't want to force people into making a massive upgrade to a $500 console or your $400 less expensive digital only console. But also at the end of the day, like, technology moves forward, like the world moves forward. Like, I'm not expecting games to come out on my N64. I'm sorry. I'm just not. I'm not expecting. I have a Sega Game Gear, Joey. I'm not expecting games to come out on the Game Gear. Okay. I'm not expecting, my PlayStation 1 to still be supported. I'm sorry. Like, 4 years to me seems like an incredibly long time to have developers essentially work on 2 different versions of the game. And as time goes on, something you notice is that especially if you're an online player, those communities start to dwindle down quite a bit. All of a sudden, your match times that took you 30 seconds to find an opponent is now taking you 5 minutes, and is now taking you 15 minutes, and is now taking you 20 minutes. So, you're going to have to upgrade sooner or later. I think 4 years is incredibly generous. I think it's also a little ridiculous that Sony is going to keep the window open that long.
I don't think they're going to keep the window open that long, if I'm being honest. I think a lot of, and again, it's a little bit of a bash on Sony, if I'm being honest. I think they change their statements depending on kind of what they're feeling in that particular time. Again, coming out and saying everyone has to upgrade day one to PS5 to get our new games, I think that's a little too stringent. At the same point, like you're saying, John, I think 4 years is just a little too crazy. I don't necessarily think it's going to hold games back to a crazy level, but I also just think it's excessive. I think as within 4 years, anyone that's going to stay in your ecosystem is most likely going to bump up to that next console. If they're going to leave your ecosystem, they've most likely left by that point as well. I don't really see too much of a reason to hold it to 4 years. That just seems super excessive. And again, some people are arguing it's going to hold games back. Other people are arguing it's not going to touch games and have that huge difference either. The Xbox Series S, some people are saying, is going to hold games back too. Someone has come out and done a full tech dive and completely debunked that, both through words, through facts, through videos, and everything like that. So again, you can argue one way or another. Different developers are going to tell you different things. One thing to look at with the way developers talk is, where is their marketing deal? If their marketing deal was with Sony, they're going to argue one way over the other side. If their marketing deal is with Microsoft, they've argued the other way. So it's funny to see some people backpedal now that we're like, oh, this is going to hold games back. And now with Sony going back 4 years, they're like, oh, no, this will be completely fine. So it's very interesting to see just the media bias out there and where it's differed here and there depending on the decisions. But that is a big case. So if you guys are looking at getting a PlayStation 5, for example, or even an Xbox Series X, your games can still be played on your old consoles for quite a while. So again, if you want, you can be in these giant queue lines. You can go ahead and purchase that console straight up if you want to try to, but it's not the end of the world if you don't get it. You can still play your Spider-Man through the end of the year. You can still play it for years to come if you really want to. But I think that is one factor that has kind of been brushed under the rug a little bit. It's been said in interviews at this point, but not really publicized too much from the Sony side, as much as we've seen it really publicized heavily from the Microsoft side.
So chat's over here. So it's coming from Blake. Blake thinks that the window should be longer and is citing Sony support for PlayStation 3 and PSP. So yes, you are technically correct. Sony did support that last gen console for a very long time. In fact, they stopped supporting it 100% for video game releases and everything back in 2019. So yeah, you are correct. Sony did allow that window to remain open for quite a while. Now, the difference is that when the PlayStation 3 came out, when the PlayStation 4 came out, all the new games were still being released on PlayStation 3 in that, year, 2 year, 3 year overlap period where people still had the last generation console. When you get to year 3, year 4, year 5, those game titles start to drop off because the sales continue on strong for the new console. People start leaving the old console. All the numbers start coming in. A lot of people trade in their old consoles to get some kind of value back to upgrade to the next generation. And the user base just starts dwindling down. And there's really no reason for developers or Sony or Microsoft or anybody else to support the last gen console really anywhere after 3 years. Because like Joey just said, like we've been saying, if you're going to jump ship to a different ecosystem, if you're going to upgrade, most people upgrade to the next generation within the first 2 years. And then yes, people continue to upgrade as the years go, as there's sales, as there's deals that come out, as people save up for the next generation console. Yes, it continues to happen, but the biggest boom happens in the first 2 years. Then after that, it slows down quite a bit. It slows down worldwide quite a bit after that worldwide release 2 years after that. So yeah, they're still going to support the PlayStation 4. That's going to happen. That's going to happen for a good majority of the lifespan of the PlayStation 5. But you will notice after 2-3 years, the amount of games that come out for it that are compatible for the PlayStation 4 will start to disappear. That just the population overall for your multiplayer online games are going to disappear. That's the reason why it just doesn't make sense to really support it that far after 3 years.
And let's be clear what we mean with support too, guys. So it doesn't mean like if you have a PlayStation 3, after 4 years, you're just not going to be accessible online. You're not going to be able to get tech support. You're not going to be able to do all these things. Those are still available. It's purely the games being developed for that console from the first party of Sony, or for Xbox those 2 years. They're only going to develop first party games for those amount of years. So your Halos are only going to be available for 2 years on the Xbox One. Your God of War only for those 4 years on the PlayStation 4. But again, for Sony, I think this is a bigger story because we're going from 0 to 4. This is huge for PlayStation gamers if you cannot afford a PlayStation 5 up front, or because of the limited stock up front from what we're getting from Sony. If you can't get lucky enough to get through a queue in time, now you have a little bit of a buffer window. Again, a giant buffer window if you look at 4 years, but even like 3 or 4 months, you still have the ability to get that Astro's Play. What is it? Astro's Playroom is coming out. You have Demon Souls, Marvel Spider-Man, Miles Morales. So there are a number of games coming out in November with the launch that will still be playable on your old console. So you won't be missing out on those experiences up front. Okay, John, we're going to move our Worlds 2020 talk to next week because they don't even play until September 25th.
That's fair.
And we are over. So we will talk about that on Monday. But the last thing I want to hit today on today's episode is games. So there's a lot of launch games coming out. Again, tons and tons of games have been moved. This is on both sides. Xbox, obviously, with the biggest hit with Halo Infinite. That is now sometime in 2021. It could be December 2021. It could be March. It could be January. We really don't know. I think a lot of people are projecting it to be March, April range for spring 2021. But again, it's still of an unknown at this point, and that was the big launch title from Xbox. Obviously, Microsoft taking the biggest hit with changes there. PlayStation is not completely by itself, though, either, in a sense that it has also had some hits. It lost, what was it? LvLUp is the name of it? Bethesda's game?
I think so, yeah.
I think it's LvLUp. So it got pushed to Q1 of 2021. So that was one of their big launch exclusives or timed launch exclusives. That one is now moved. Demon Souls is something that has a bit of a question mark if it's actually launching at launch. But for now, we're going to include it on the list. And that list also includes Astro's Playground, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. Again, guys, this game looks amazing. I don't want to hide anything from you. It's going to be about an 8-hour experience. So we're not talking like a giant Spider-Man game like the first one. I don't want to say it's DLC like Xbox fanboys are going to call it, but it is a much shorter game experience than people were originally expecting in comparison to the original Spider-Man game. Sackboy: A Big Adventure is another one coming out. And then Bug Snacks, John, I believe, is also in that launch window, which I know people are stoked for Bug Snacks. Who doesn't want to go catch bugs with eyes on them that look crazy fruit-like? Good times there. On the Xbox side, I actually don't know where I put my list of Xbox ones. They have some horror titles that are coming out. There's a lot of third-party titles for both of these consoles as well. The third-party titles are really going to dominate if we're being completely honest. PlayStation's got some good titles. Xbox, again, not some huge titles for launch, but they do have some good ones as well. But the biggest thing is the third-party titles, which I cannot find where my tab went for these. I think Watch Dogs is one of the big launch titles. Assassin's Creed Valhalla should be one of the big launch titles. Yakuza is another big launch title on all of them as well. Those are kind of your three big ones at launch. Watch Dogs and Assassin's Creed pulling in tons and tons of people, being very big third-party games overall. Go ahead and touch on this, John, because I got to find my other tab here.
I don't know. I'm just more excited about some of the games I saw out of the PlayStation release. That are not console exclusive.
Right. That's the thing. The third-party games have really dominated the launch window.
They really have. And, the console exclusives, again, how long are they going to stay on PlayStation 5 before they come to the PC? That we don't know as of yet. But, games like Gran Turismo, probably one of the better racing games out there before Forza really came out there and started challenging it. But Gran Turismo, going all the way back to, I believe the original PlayStation, solid in racing gaming there. That's going to be a launch title for PlayStation 5, which is going to be really exciting too if you're into racing games. Both consoles launching with a decent amount of games, but both consoles also launching with a decent amount of games being delayed due to coronavirus. So it's kind of weird to really kind of use launch games as a measuring stick, if you will. Just because of there's so many question marks up in the air in regards to will they actually be released on time due to the ongoing pandemic. Hopefully a lot of them will. A new console with not a lot of games is not a lot of fun. I believe the PlayStation 2 launch only had about 7 titles at launch, and some of them were kiddie games that, unless you're 8, you're not really going to enjoy. So you definitely don't want to have that where you're sitting here waiting for more games to come out, because that could be a reason for someone to sit and wait before they upgrade to the next console, is a lack of games that come out at the time of launch or lack of exclusives. So I think it's going to be interesting. I don't want to judge one over the other based upon exclusives as of yet, just because it is such a weird time. But I feel like both consoles have amazing exclusives that will be coming out within the first or second or possibly third quarter of that launch, that could really make going into either ecosystem worth it for you as a gamer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we have to pick one, so again, third party completely dominates your Assassin's Creed, your Watchdog Legions. Devil May Cry is another one that I saw on here that's third party. Obviously, your big stuff from last gen carries over too. For those of you big Fortnite players out there, again, that'll be accessible on the new consoles. One thing Xbox is doing up front that I really like too, John, They are upgrading all of your big Xbox One games as well. So like Gears of War 5, for example, is going to be upgraded to 120 for your frames per second. It's going to get a new graphic look for the Xbox Series X to really capture that power. That is something that Xbox has really done a good job preparing for next gen. As far as actual raw titles, it is on the short side, but I think if we look at first-party titles, Spider-Man Miles Morales is the big winner here at launch. It is a giant game in terms of graphical power. It's going to come out and look absolutely beautiful. It's going to have ray tracing. For those of you who watched the recent showcase, you could tell in the puddles and really the windows of the store, the ability to see the reflections really bright compared to what we had in the last generation of consoles. Again, I think it is a bit of a shorter game overall. It's not going to be a very long experience, but it's going to be a very deep experience as far as actually getting to see the graphical capabilities of that new system. So if we had to pick one game that's not third party, I think the one that stands out to me the most is that new Spider-Man game.
Yeah, the Spider-Man game, just with the hype around the Marvel universe and how well it's done. Because believe it or not, Hollywood thought the Marvel universe going to the big screen was a massive gamble, and it was a gamble that paid off. Then the next gamble from that was Deadpool, a superhero movie being rated R. That absolutely crushed it as well. So really, the Marvel and comic book universe have been taking off. So the fact that a Spider-Man game, Spider-Man, one of the more popular superheroes in the superhero universe, being a console exclusive, is definitely massive for PlayStation 5.
Absolutely. Okay, sir. So we've laid out everything. We've laid out tech specs. We did not show you guys a picture of the size, but you can look those up online. Or do you want to pull that up right now? Do you have the ability to? I just put a link into our chat.
I can, if it's on Discord, I can't do it because then it takes away your beautiful face.
Unacceptable, guys. You cannot see it, but I can post it in your chat.
If you can put it in the Google Doc chat, I can pull it up that way.
Definitely. I'm going to put it right under industry acquisitions and departures because that totally makes sense today.
I like it.
But chat, you can take a look at this. So this is a mock-up of what the actual sizes are going to look like, the thickness of these consoles, the depth and height of these consoles. There is definitely a bit of a size discrepancy in comparison to one another. They're biggins. Whether you're looking at the wide side, the thick side, the tall side, they are looking next gen as far as sizes go. Again, when we think next gen, we're thinking big power and smaller machines. You can argue that with the Xbox Series S. But the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 are going to be big boys with an eye at the end. They're big consoles, and you guys are going to have to find some space for these suckers on your entertainment cabinets. There is a beautiful picture right there.
Wait, is that in Rome? Is that picture taken in Rome?
This is like the mock-up I found. As you can see, the PlayStation definitely standing taller above all of the rest. It is a very tall system. When it comes to width, the Xbox Series X is your thickest console as well. I know, like where the heck did this go?
That is such a random picture.
It is. And that is not ray tracing, guys. That is an actual puddle, I believe, or like a reflection off marble. Not quite sure.
It's just, I just don't. Okay, so if you're into tall and skinny consoles, the PlayStation 5 is your winner, unless you layer down. Then, whew, oh boy. If you're into literally a mini fridge that you may or may not be able to actually store beverages in, your Xbox Series X is the winner. If you are looking for a drive-through simulator 2020 and 2021, the Xbox Series S is going to be your winner. You can practice your drive-through speeches there as well. Yeah, I mean, look, I thought the PlayStation 2 was a thick boy. Like, it is nothing compared to this current generation of consoles. I applaud both Sony and Microsoft for a lack of better terminology, thinking outside of the box and doing something a little, I really hate the fact that I just said that, but thinking something a little different. Yes, I love the memes of the mini fridge. Yes, I love the memes of the Wi-Fi router. It's just so different. I mean, the PlayStation 4 is just so boring. The Xbox Series 1X, 1.5, 1X1 is so boring. It's a standard rectangle. It's boring. Now you have a mini fridge and a speaker box and a Wi-Fi router. You're welcome, gaming universe.
Another thing we did not touch on, John. So both these consoles all three of these consoles, all four technically, they can be stood up or laid down on their side. So that is an option, whether you want them horizontal or vertical, both are available. The PS5 does have a special little part to it, though. It is going to come with a hanging mechanism as well to be sold separately. It has been found to not fit in most standard entertainment cabinets. So if you do not plan on standing it up, there is a wall mount option that will be sold separately as well. That's serious, by the way, guys. That's not a joke. That is a real thing.
So let me get this straight. You can mount your PlayStation next to your TV on the same wall.
That is correct.
It's so freaking ridiculous.
Yeah, I lost it when I saw that was a thing. Joey, that is like for real. That's from Sony. That is an actual thing. It's not like someone making a joke. There is an actual wall mount, PlayStation 5 specific wall mount available for purchase.
Okay, I have to ask. Chat, get involved here too. Joey, if you can do one of those cool little polls for this.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Over or under the price for the PlayStation 5 wall mount?
Did you pull it up?
No, I don't.
Oh.
I want to get this on record right now. Over or under for the PlayStation wall mount. Now, knowing how Sony prices things, I feel like this is very middle of the road here. Okay, listen, here we go. $150 for the wall mount. Is it going to be more or is it going to be less than $150 for the wall mount? Now, this is also the same company that charged almost $50 for their DVD remote for the PlayStation 2. This is the same company that for the PlayStation 1 charged close to $20 for a memory card. All right? This is the same company that really started overpricing controllers to be closer to $70 and $80 per extra controller. So, will the PS5 wall mount cost $150 over or under? Joey, I'm struggling because I think it's going to be $150. I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to say over because I think Sony does this crap all the time. I think it's going to be over.
I have a poll for 2 minutes. We're almost through the first.
Poll. Okay,
get your votes in, ladies and gentlemen.
Am I allowed to vote here? Hold on a second.
Yeah, you can. You can most definitely vote.
Let's see.
I voted as a mod.
I have voted as the streaming host. I can see live results too. Wow. Okay. Cool. Awesome. We'll let that. So you can't change, can you? You can't change your opinion once you.
I don't think so. I do not have the option to change.
Good. This is not the upcoming election. You can only vote once, right?
Oh my gosh, chat is like, watch the mount cost more than the PS5. Are you kidding?
No, the mount's not going to cost more than the PlayStation 5. You know what? Screw it. It might. You know, that's something Sony does.
I mean, they do need to try to make up the difference of the price drop they had to make in the last week, right?
This is true. This is a valid point. Again, $549 to $600 is what we were looking at for the digital version of the PlayStation 5. Absolutely freaking ridiculous. And yeah, the other thing too is PlayStation did confirm that PlayStation exclusive games made by PlayStation Studios are confirmed to be $70 games going forward. So that whole rumor of next gen games going to be costing more, guess what? That ain't a rumor no more. That is fact, at least coming out from the Sony side. We'll see if Microsoft matches. It wouldn't surprise me if they did. Gamers are going to pay it. And to be completely honest, with the quality of games that have come out, we're not going to talk about the duds here and there, but with the quality of games that have come out, it makes sense to raise it a little bit more. I don't like it, but it makes some sense. But I do not want half-completed games. I want fully completed games. I don't want, we'll give you a free DLC 4 years down the road when we finally figure the game out. I want everything now and a DLC 4 years down the road as well. So I'm not shilling for big gaming. Absolutely not. I just want a complete game. Gamers, we have gotten way too complacent with allowing these people to ship out incomplete games and then accepting a $20 DLC for 45 minutes of extra content. I'm tired of it. If you're going to raise the price, fine. Make the content worth the price raise. That's all I'm asking for. It's as simple as that. I believe we had the final for the poll there, Joey. I have missed it. I apologize. Did you get a final?
I did get it. It was 67% thinking it's going to be over the cost of $150 for that wall mount.
All right. So we'll hold on to those numbers. We'll see what the wall mount. Can't believe they have a wall mount coming out for the big boy PlayStation 5.
Absolutely. So as John said, guys, again, game prices will be $70. We do also know the PlayStation price for the controller. That will be up to $70 as well. So if you're someone that likes to play co-op situations in a couch co-op situation or multiplayer, you will be shilling out $70 for that new controller. I don't think we know the Xbox controller price as of yet. We also, like John said, do not know the Xbox first-party price for their games either. We do know that Take-Two and EA are looking to raise to $70 as well. So again, there is going to be a bit of a price disparity coming out from third parties for the most part. And now Sony buying into that as well, because Sony's not going to give up on the opportunity to raise a price. And as John said, I really don't think it's the end of the world. Yes, $70 is a lot of money compared to $60. Potentially, it will add up over time. But one of the things to look at is we haven't had a price range in 7 years, I think is when the last one was raised up. So it is quite a while, and the gaming industry has continued to grow over that time. Based on that, it does make sense for that price range raise. So I don't think it is the end of the world. Especially with services like Game Pass. I think that just adds more value to Game Pass. Now having those games first day in, day out on Xbox Game Pass is a big win for those Xbox and PC gamers that subscribe to that as well, because now that subscription value goes up with those $70 games. I think that does it, buddy. I think we've dove into a lot. I feel like we definitely missed some things. PlayStation pre-order situation being a giant mess. It was supposed to go live today.
Just real quick, go for it, Joey. Just because I know you want to lay into it. I'll sit back and listen and take it. Just go.
It's just one of those things like, okay, come on, PlayStation. They ended up saying, hey, we're going to have people pre-order. So sign up, get your email on this website that they went out and created to get their email out there, and end up saying, okay, we're going to let you know well ahead of time when you have to pre-order. They've said this in multiple interviews. They've done emails. They've done websites. Then they come to their conference and we're like, okay, we're going to get a price. We're going to get a reveal. We're going to get that pre-order date. And we got the price and we got the reveal. And then we got a black screen. No pre-order date. So, okay, we get it. Maybe it's not going to happen just yet. Then they sent some emails to some people and made some announcements via retailers that it was going to open up tomorrow morning. When did it actually open up, John? It opened up last night, ladies and gentlemen, for all of you who were sleeping or not paying attention, because Sony gave such a great heads up on when this pre-order was going to go live. It went live last night. On top of that, a lot of retailers had about 20 consoles to give away. So those neighborhood GameStops, yeah, they had about 20 consoles. You want to know the margin of those consoles, John? And we didn't dive into this either. Maybe this will come later on. It was something like a 20-5 ratio as far as PS5s with disc compared to the digital edition. I think there's a bigger story here. I think they did the digital edition more as a price point to kind of hit against Xbox in the media publicity versus actually selling those digital editions. But we can dive into that later on down the road. For now, PlayStation 5s are sold out. They're not available. There should be a couple more shipments. I think Walmart is doing more on the 22nd. There is another big load that's supposed to be manufactured and ready come late November, early December. And then the next set is January and then March, respectively. So there's a little bit of an issue there. A lot of PlayStation fans are either pissed or like hardcore supporting Sony here. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to check social media because it drives me crazy. There are people out there, like, we're talking like full-on ponies, like big Sony fanboys, not just your normal PlayStation player. They're like, oh yeah, it's completely fine that Sony did this. Like, we should have just expected it. They've done it to us before. Hello? That's like abuse 101. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, come on, fam. That is just not the way to live. That is one thing that has come out. And then other people are like, okay, I might consider an Xbox now, or I might consider just holding off and playing my games on PS4 until those PS5s become more readily available. Again, a bit more of a level-headed decision, in my opinion, as far as possibly waiting instead of doing something crazy like buying for $1,000 off eBay, or continuing to praise Sony for doing this to their gamers. One of the funniest things about all of this, though, John, The people that signed up for that email to get the pre-order notification,
like myself,
those emails have still not been sent out yet.
No, they have not.
They have not received anything. So a lot of people think Sony released a website that they no longer supported or paid attention to. So all those privileged people that were the people who ended up getting those emails based on their support for Sony, they feel a little bit left out now. Again, I don't think it results in a ton of people not buying PS5s. I think PS5 completely outsells the Xbox, mainly because of a giant Asian audience over there. They sell so well over in Asia and over in Europe, and I think that will dominate the overall worldwide sales. But it's a bit of a setback. For the Xbox side, pre-orders go live on September 22nd. I believe we have times for every major region except for South America. Again, I think this is great that Xbox is giving all this information out, and part of it might be because of what Sony did and how bad publicity that has been. But I don't like the fact that Xbox did not include South America either. I think that does leave some of those. Brazil is a huge gaming crowd for Xbox, and I think leaving them up in the air like that is not fair to do either. So hopefully some news on that in the near future. But if you want another PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X or S, September 22nd is going to be that next pre-order date for you guys.
Okay,
that was fun.
So just to wrap it up, Joey, have you made your mind up? Are you going to dive into the next generation console? If so, what are you going to lean towards?
Oh, we're doing this now. Yeah, guys, I am going to get a next gen console. I'm still up in the air of which one. I'm going to go Xbox. I'm in the Xbox ecosystem already. One of the things we didn't talk about as well is Play Anywhere. So this is a Xbox only feature that I really like. For example, I'll be downstairs playing on the Xbox in the living room, and my wife will be like, do you mind going upstairs and playing so I can watch TV? And I'll be like, sure, honey, that's not a problem at all. And I will just move my game from the Xbox to the PC by clicking one button. That to me is a huge feature, and I absolutely love that. On top of that, the most powerful console being the Xbox Series X is a big win for me. Why I'm not decided between the S and the X, again, I like the X for the longevity. I like it for the power. But the reason I'm getting a console is more to play those sports games, to play some of those casual games, to have that flexibility as far as transferring games, as well as that couch co-op playability. So for that, I'm like, do I really need to spend the extra $200 to get all this power if I'm just going to be playing a FIFA and an NBA 2K and things like that? So I'm still up in the air. I'm definitely going Xbox based on those decisions. I just don't know which one just yet.
I have no clue. I'll be dead honest. I don't know which one I'm going to get. I'm really enjoying the Xbox Game Pass. I can say that. As much as I hate admitting that, I think it's a great price point. I think it's been fantastic. It feels weird that I'm even considering an Xbox, to be completely honest. But the fact that everything's sold out. I mean, look, I'm not going to be getting a console within the next 6 months or anything. My next major purchase is going to be a new graphics card for my PC because that's more important. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I'm currently very undecided. I think there's pros and cons to both. Yeah, stay tuned. I know Dana has the decision coming up live on social media where she'll make up her mind whether she sticks with PlayStation or goes Xbox. Decision part 2 for Fiasco will come later.
Decision part 2. Will we be going to South Beach? Will we be going to Silicon Valley? Find out later on the next episode of Level Up. Oh my gosh, is he really spelling your name wrong and giving you Resident Sleeper?
He's doing it on purpose because when you put exclamation point Fiasco, it says, yes, it's a funny spelling of Fiasco spelled the correct way. And then that's
adorable.
Like, he's been hooked on that as well. When in reality, he should see. I like it. He should see what it says for yours, where it says Courtside King, which is
that's
absolutely fantastic. All right, Joe, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I am.
Yes, please do.
I'm ready. Well, Nation, that was a long one, and that will do it for the Thursday edition of LvLUp Live. Before you go, head on over to patreon.com/OTN and consider becoming a part of the Overtime Network. In return, you'll get access to exclusive content that nobody else in the world can get unless they are a part of OTN Media. If you haven't already done so, make sure you're following the show on Twitch to catch the next episode of LvLUp Live. If you listen to the show on our podcast feed, leave us a review. The LvLUp Podcast is available on Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, and Google Play. We would love to hear from you. In fact, we love to hear from our community so much there are other ways for you to reach out and interact with us. Joey, if I'm some rando coming across this channel right now and I'm like, hey, these two guys aren't that bad, where can they go to hang out?
Yo, some rando, welcome to the channel. Welcome to the podcast. You can find us on Twitter as well, and that's at LvLUp Live, LvLUP Live. You can follow the umbrella company OTN Media on Twitter and Facebook as well. That is at OTN Media on Instagram, at OTN_media. Last but not least, hit us with a follow, a like, a subscribe, something like that on Twitch, twitch.tv/OTN Media. This show Mondays and Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern time. On top of that, we also do a number of other shows and streams throughout the week. John, I believe you have Life is Strange coming up again soon, so that should be on the channel.
Tell me why.
Tell me why. From the makers of Life is Strange, don't nod. Great stuff there. Find that again, twitch.tv/OTN Media.
All right, rando, since you've already tuned in now, make sure you tune in on Monday, September 21st, as we cover the latest and greatest in gaming and esports news. Do your ears a favor, slap that sub and follow button to know when the next episode of LvLUp Live is ready for your viewing pleasures. We will catch you all on Monday. Have a great weekend. Remember, be nice to your fellow gamers online. And as always, level up.